We are back, Ed, for another
Yes.
monthly issue of the Gordon Report. It's good to see you. You've had an exciting month, exciting week.
Yes.
For those of you who have been watching Ed and I for over a year now, we've been doing this on a monthly basis. Every month we talk about what Ed discovers, reveals some new statistics, trends, forecasts, you and I have been talking about the labor shortage for, well, you longer than me, but so this is no surprise to many people. It's like, how did we get in this spot? And because we've been talking about it for a long time. You in the early 90s, me in 1999, I came up with the perfect labor storm, actually trademarked that. I just found my trademark. We were in 2004, the perfect labor storm. And we talked about labor shortages. So this is no surprise.
No.
The biggest surprise is the pandemic accelerated it and sort of brought it more abruptly, to our front.
Right.
But it's here, and you've been working on a new edition, not a new book, but a new white paper called The Job Shock. We've been talking about job shock for 12 months or so, almost 12 months. And it was released this week.
That's right.
And, you had a big grand opening in Chicago.
That's right. We had on Tuesday, we had the rollout of this report. Now, parts of it have been, we've released and we talked about, but now the whole report is available. And there, if you look on the screen, is a YouTube video of the rollout at the Cliff Dwellers Club in Chicago. We had economists there, directors of regional talent innovation networks, a live audience, and I gave a chance to give an overview of what's in the white paper. But it's interesting, Ira, coming into this with your 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, here you are. Well, folks, we are now here. We've run out of time. For the last 20 years, we've ignored this issue. We have done a lot of things to try to say it doesn't exist. There is no skills job disconnect. And Ira, it's more evident than ever. Within the last month, here are all of the reports and articles that have come out that basically say, we've run out of gas. We don't have enough talent, enough educated and career skilled people for this high-tech economy. And what the world are we going to do about it? Okay. And, Accenture, Brookings, McKinsey, Korn Ferry, Urban Manufacturing Alliance are among the ones. And even now, the federal government in their monthly report called JOLTS. If you ever get this, you can look at it and you can see, I have news for you. Isn't it amazing? It's not just hospitality and hotels and restaurants. There are millions and millions. Now we're up to 11 million vacant jobs. I predict it's slightly over that. It's 13 million vacant jobs. I was predicting 14 million vacant jobs by 2022. We may very well reach that before the end of this year. So what occurred at our meeting, we got very strong positive support for the idea that we have to reinvent and refurbish, re-energize this system. And we need the support of business leaders, parents, unions, and others to do it at the local, regional level. That's how it's going to roll out. And people accept that. They really do. At your end of the assessment tool that you use and the way in which people are applying, you've seen a lot of angst now that they can't get the skilled people, right?
They can't get any people. One of the phenomena is, and maybe you have some insight to this, we predicted this would happen, and the statistics were there, that the reason that that we had labor shortages because of the unemployment benefits. And yet the states that were cutting them off, beginning in May, June, weren't seeing an uptick. So the latest statistics I saw, there were 27 states that had suspended their unemployment benefits prior to this month when they expire. And there was little to no uptick in the number of people that were applying for jobs.
Right.
So we have this phenomena that, and it really is a phenomena, that we've got 11 million or 13 million open jobs.
Right.
We have 8 million people unemployed. The rate keeps falling. We're down now to 5.1%. Although I just heard this from the conference board the other day, or I saw this at conference board the other day. Computer and math workers, the unemployment rate's 1.5%.
Right.
A tech worker in the tech space, 1.5%.
Right.
So the challenge is, okay, that's a reskilling. There are no more other bodies.
Right.
Where are the people that we can apply? And one source is looking at other industries. There's people that have tech skills,
yes,
that may not have a computer science degree.
Correct.
And companies still say we need a computer science degree, rather than looking at what are the skills that they have that could be applied. So they could have learned it on their own. They could have taken a dozen, 2 dozen, 3 dozen courses. They could be math whizzes. They could be computer whizzes. They're sitting in somebody's basement without a 4-year college degree, and they may need some training.
Right.
But people are looking in the right places. People have to become more open to that. But that's an incredible number, 1.5% unemployment. And, that gets lost. And we're definitely living in whether it's somebody for programming or somebody for cybersecurity.
That's right. Well, look at it. What's really pushing these numbers now are a few separate factors. First, you have so many baby boomers retiring. Now, about a third of the 70 million that are retiring this decade are what I'll call skilled workers. Among them are the people that you just mentioned in that particular industry. But then you got them in finance, you got carpenters, plumbers, doctors, nurses, etc. Okay, they're leaving the workforce. Now, some of them would like to stay in the workforce, and they're being forced out because they're too old. They cost too much money. They can't be retrained. And that's, in many cases, a lot of malarkey. All right, that's one factor. The other factor is what you just were talking about. There are people out there who basically have the skills that you need for your jobs, but you won't consider them. Many of them even have given up looking, because they've sent so many resumes out and they just haven't gotten any response. And you look at it and you say, well, let's see now. We have 26 things we need. They have 21 of them. They're not job ready. Forget it. Well, folks, only 2% of you are doing entry-level job training. So you just wiped out. The real unemployment rate is not 8%. There are at least another 20 million people out there who have degrees, certificates, apprenticeships, who you've rejected because they're not a precise fit. They're not what you call job ready, all right? Until you start doing job training again to give them what's left, what you need for a precise fit, you're not going to find them. So in terms of right now, filling those 13 million vacant jobs, there are people out there, if you will give them some training. Now, of course, look, they got to be willing to be trained. A lot of people say, hey, I'm through with training. I don't want to be trained. Well, then you can't do anything with them. But there are people out there who are eager to be trained, eager to learn, and eager to work. All right, that's one factor right now. But the other factor is you have this huge number of people leaving. And now how many younger people are entering the market? Well, it's a smaller number. Now, how many of those are job ready? You had a third of the boomers leaving who would fit comfortably into what we need. You only have a third of the young people coming in. Well, I have news for you. Right now, we need 2/3. We're short a third. Okay. And you're going to go out and poach them. Well, folks, it's a finite number. We're not increasing the number. Our educational systems are so weak in reading, writing, math, and science that we're only still getting a third, even though, hey, most of those kids could do it, but our local systems, private and public schools, are still only producing the workforce we needed for 1973. And this is 2021. All right. So long term, we have a problem here. It's not just right now. It's as this decade continues. All right.
So and again, you're the labor economist, the historian in the group here. But I just, people think that this is going to, there's a quick fix. And most of us know that this is at least a decade-long problem.
Oh.
But just from a short term, most people we're on the upside of a labor shortage. And we're looking at an economy that we're going to have some bumps in the roads. Next week we may not have a federal budget, and then that will get resolved, and things will go away, and there may be another wave of the pandemic, and then there's a terrorist. There's going to be these waves.
Right.
But the ultimate effect is going to be our economy is going to continue to grow pretty readily, and the employment, the number of jobs is going to continue to grow through late 2022 or 23. Mm-hmm. So for most people are looking at, we're at least 18 to 24 months more growth on top of what we have. And then just last night, I passed the local restaurant, family-owned restaurant. Typically on a Wednesday and Thursday night, one night's wing nights. I can't remember what last night was supposed to be. 8:00, dark. Can't find help. Last Saturday,
right?
Their busiest day of the week. Beautiful day outside. They got an outside patio. Big Penn State game last week evening. They have TVs all over the place. So it's not a sports bar, but they have TVs. It's that type of environment. Guess what? They're shut down because they had no cooks, which brings up what you also talked about. You sent me the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta released the statistics that based on the numbers, and over the next 12 months, we're looking at, I don't remember the exact $1 billion, but it was 728 billion. Was that
38? It's
38. Okay, pretty close. 700. Yeah, what's 10 billion when you're in those numbers? $738 billion of lost revenues due to labor shortages. Mm-hmm. So we talk about our labor shortages are cutting back on our growth, and we're still growing. Mm-hmm. But the labor shortages is causing that, but the growth is creating more labor shortages.
Right, correct. And again, you have a finite pool. I want to emphasize this to all our listeners. We do not have an infinite pool of skilled labor here. We have a finite pool, all right? Gallup and Barbara Bush Foundation just issued a report that 130 million American adults read at or below the 8th or 6th grade level of reading comprehension. Now, what can you do with those people in terms of your jobs? The answer is zero, nothing. All right. So what I'm trying to point out here, what I think Ira and I are talking to you is, you have a finite supply right now of people that are available coming into the workforce. Unless you get engaged with your local education systems, really engaged, you have still this small supply. And what you don't understand or won't accept, or your leaders won't in your companies, is that this is a worldwide problem. Mm-hmm. So how many people, so let's say the Biden administration opens the doors of H-1B and will take in an infinite number of skilled labor for your industry. I have news for you. They don't exist anywhere. All of these industrial countries have two things: shrinking populations in most cases, and secondly, they are short the same people you're short. So you might get some response, but not nearly enough. And in terms of you going out and poaching it from other people, I have news for you. We're going to have massive wage inflation over this decade. Hospitals, yeah, that's right. There's a hospital I just read about the other day, had 400 vacant positions in their hospital. The National Association of Nursing now has issued a crisis alert. We were 1 million nurses short going into the pandemic, and now hospitals are offering $40,000 signing bonuses to a nurse if they'll stay for 2 years. What are you going to offer in order to attract talent or to keep your people there? So,
well, and one of my a client of mine in upstate New York, public news, basically they're and again, this fits under the big umbrella of labor shortage, not necessarily because they weren't trained, but walked off the job because of the vaccination mandates. So they had to close their maternity, and they're a rural hospital. They are the closest link for many people that were ready to give birth. And they have no maternity there, and there are states that are now even rationing care. There was somebody that said, "Listen, we have tents in our parking lots. We could take care. We have the physical capacity and the equipment to take care of people who are sick. We don't have the people the providers." To go into the tents to take care of the people.
Now, remember this too. Half of all the vacant jobs we have right now do not require a 4-year college diploma. And they range from truck drivers, long distance haulers, to lab technicians, to people, the chip shortage. Well, the head of this one International Chip Association has pointed out, yes, you can build more chip factories in America. We don't have the technicians trained to make the chips. So those companies are going to have to start entry-level job training or retraining programs to create more chips. All right?
Right.
So Manpower right now reports that 7% of American business right now can't find workers. And small businesses, this is what's going to happen now. People say to me, well, entrepreneurship is going to save this economy. People are fed up working with big companies. They're going to set up their own small companies. The problem is the majority of small companies, the vast majority who are looking to hire, can't find qualified workers. And they're so small that they don't have training departments.
Well, and they're complaining. I mean, I get asked this question all the time: is what can a small business do to compete with Amazon? So a small business says, "Hey, listen, we used to pay $10. We're willing to pay $15 an hour, but Amazon just raised it to $18 an hour." There's a family-owned business of food confectioner driving down Interstate 33, big sign up, starting jobs, $23 an hour to work in a food in a candy confectioning place. So they're $5 over what the minimum of Amazon is, and they can't find enough. So going back to your finite workers, and you don't need a college degree to work in either of those places. What's interesting, Ed, and I keep looking. Let me just put this graphic up here because we talked about this before with the finite number. So we looked at closing the skill gap, the number of jobs that were available, and how we're going to close the gap. And this was with aggressive reskilling. I'll put that up again.
Yeah,
just
put up again. Yes.
Yeah, I can't hold it because it's actually an action slide. But
okay.
So the 10 million, we still ended up with 32 million short over the next 10 years. At the same time, companies have. There's an article the other day that companies are lowering the bar for education. One client told me, frankly, we'd hire anybody who can fog a mirror. We're not talking about lowering the standards. We're talking about having better standards. Saying, okay, we don't need a college degree, or just as long as they show up on the first day, we're going to hire them. How companies need a better way of measuring, of assessing what are the skills we need. Maybe they do need some post-secondary education or secondary education, but they don't need a 4-year degree, and they don't need it in that area of expertise. So we have this thing going on that we have more open jobs. We have more people going to college. The number of people actually in college or pursuing college degrees or with college degrees is now greater than it's ever been. But the jobs that are available don't require those degrees.
Yes, but also the fact is that 70% of all jobs today require post-secondary education.
But not
and that's right, not a full college degree. But it does require someone who's learned how to learn through their elementary and secondary schooling. And many people come out of high school who haven't learned how to learn. They don't want to learn. All right. They want a mindless job. You don't have mindless jobs, folks, to give them. You need people who are trainable. You need people who are capable of growing through lifelong learning. All right. So we're caught up. So for small businesses, that's why regional talent innovation networks that I write about and I support and I work with all over the country allow small companies to build skill centers or work with local community colleges to set up specific programs for their particular industry. And they can pool their efforts and money into that. So it's not a question of poaching from one another. It's a question of collaborating with one another to get the job done so you don't go out of business. And we predict by 2030 that a lot of small businesses will disappear or be bought up or leave the United States. Now, we've already seen that start. And that's why entrepreneurship in itself isn't going to help. And of course, a lot of people, now Ira and me, the two of us, we're entrepreneurs. And you know what that means? We persevere. When most people say, no, 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 we continue to persevere. A lot of people can't take that. A lot of people aren't entrepreneurial. That's part of the issue here. But greater than that, there aren't people to hire. And people can't get over that fact. Go to your grocery store and look at the products right now that you can't get anymore. Right. Lamb now costs in Chicago $40 a pound at the supermarket. That's crazy.
We've been trying to get. We've been using fat-free creamer for our milk for years, and we'd go there and we'd buy that, and I drink a lot of coffee, and my wife has her morning cups, and since we've been at home, we haven't been able to get it for 6 weeks.
Now, one of the keys,
shelves are empty.
Yeah, I know. One of the keys that makes Retain successful is that you have partnership and collaboration between business and schools and nonprofits. And one of the keys is we need more businesses to do this, to collaborate and put their money where their mouth is, retrain their workers, set up job training, and get more engaged in the long-term rebuilding the pipeline. The pipeline is broken. The pipeline is broken. Empty. And it's out of date. And the longer your community waits and the longer your company waits to participate in these efforts, the sooner either A, your company will fail, B, it will move to some other market in other states that do this, or it will be bought up. And right now, a lot of you are just buying up each other, thinking you can get the talent by buying up a competitor, throw away the rest of the people. Again, there is a finite number of talent in your industry. It is not infinite, and it is not keeping up with the huge exodus of boomers who you have relied upon. 2/3 of the jobs you need to replace between now and to fill between now and 2030 are replacing those skilled people. Only 1/3 are new. And if this continues and interest rates skyrocket and unemployment, basically you have this huge sea of unemployed people or people who've given up, the economy is not going to grow. It's going to start to fail. And already we have a cost here. We just told you the Federal Reserve in Atlanta is giving you a $700 billion loss. And we already see a huge $1 trillion loss because we have this huge mass of techno peasants who basically are functionally illiterate for today's society. That's money that's being drained out of this economy. Inflation is not growth. And we need growth to pay for your pensions, your Social Security, your Medicaid, and all these other programs we talk about. We just can't print the money and have the Fed buy it. And the Fed's now going to try to start unwinding that. And hopefully they won't have to raise interest rates to 8-10% to get people to buy those treasuries. They're going to be flooding the market soon. So this all works together. But the foundation of all this is an educated talent pool to make your company work. Without that, there are no taxes to be collected. There are no incomes for people. And you can expect more demagoguery offered to us from the far left or the far right in terms of solutions to punish certain people. That is not going to solve this problem. You are going to solve this problem. And 100 years ago, when we set up the current system, it was the business community that gradually, with other people in society, realized that, there are more than a few people that can be educated as we introduce this industrial revolution. And I say to you now, there are more than just 1/3 of Americans who can be educated to fill these jobs. You have to believe that it can be done at your local level.
Ed, we're coming up toward the bottom of the hour here, and we've had a response from somebody maybe in your backyard. You might know Dr. Brandon Hamilton. Are you familiar with
that
name ring a bell? Well, I'm just going to post this up here. So he's from the Chicago area, and his first post was, when we mentioned cybersecurity, this is my challenge. I can't find talent. And he, in some regards, is working with the city colleges of Chicago, developing programs. So that's a good start. But then you have to go into the schools and talk about that. And you get the parents on board. I appreciate the comment there, Dr. Hamilton. But you're absolutely right. There's a lot of opportunity. Schools are looking to change, especially the community colleges, some of the more progressive schools looking to change their curriculum. But in order to get people interested in those programs, it's going to take parents and schools and in the secondary and the communities and support. And then people have to have the people. There's still a large number of people that don't have the funds to even go to a school like that. Let me just see what Ann said. Companies are realizing that they're losing talent. We are already experiencing shortage. Many are exiting the workplace. Absolutely. Ann was on our show last month.
And she was at our summit. She just was at our rollout. But the fact is, we have to produce more than 1/3 of young people coming out of high school who can go to the city college. City colleges has a graduation rate of 16% of the students who graduate with a 2-year degree. Only 16, the rest drop out because they don't have the skills to do the work, because elementary and high school education in the Chicago area, for many of them, are daycare centers.
Which is another major shortage. They can't find the people to be able to do that, which is forcing companies to close down, or not close down, but they can't get workers because they don't have childcare.
It's an interlocking system.
So let me show you this. You'll be the first, and anybody on the call will be the very first to see this. I've been working on this to show how complicated this is, and then we do want to wrap up. I created this. Here's my perfect labor storm. Lots of clouds in the air.
Yeah.
And we didn't even venture into lower labor participation rates, which has been gradual, Ed.
Yes.
You know that. I mean, male participation rate's been declining for 40 years, I think, 30 years.
Yes, long
30
time.
years. Dramatically over the last two. It's down to it's under 62%. And the female participation rate, which has saved us, it masked the problem, had increased from 38% in about 1950 to 60%, 61% during the 2010s, and now it's at 52%.
Right.
So we had the she session. Can't say that fast. She session. We got the skill gap. These are the two major black clouds that are hovering. But we've got all these other issues. We got college graduation rates. Again, we talked about that we need people that have post-secondary education, but not necessarily a college degree. But we have childcare issues. I've got to put my glasses on this to see these. Opioid addiction. There is 1 million young people unemployable because of opioid addiction.
Right.
If every one of these took a small percentage, let's say it only took 1% of the available people to be, it must be time, huh? Your timer's going off.
No.
Your chimes.
That's my ship clock.
Yeah.
All right.
So if every one of those clouds, and there's 20 clouds up there, if every one of those clouds only took 1% of the population out, that's 20% of employable. 1 out of every 5 people that could be employable is no longer in the market. Why do we have a labor shortage? It's a combination of things. And then even if we solve some of those problems, we still go back to the skill gap. And one thing before we close out today, I just wanted to talk about, because I've been focused on adaptability, and the more I dug into it, realizing that we were talking about that the young people coming out have an education, they have a degree, a diploma, even a college degree, maybe even a master's level degree, but they're not necessarily prepared for work. They were prepared to graduate. So we've got that issue, and that pipeline is absolutely broken. But the other part is we have a lot of people we need to reskill or upskill. And there's a difference. There's a huge difference. But in order to reskill, we're talking about people changing careers, changing their routines, learning their new behaviors. And if young people didn't learn how to learn, there's certainly older workers that, and I say older, it could be anybody above 30 years old, but it's actually 40 or 50 years old. That doesn't mean you're old. You're just an older worker at this point. And you never learn to learn. Now we need to teach them to learn, but we also need to teach them to unlearn. They need to unlearn their bad behaviors. What they did for 20 years successfully won't work anymore. It's not going to work. And that doesn't keep them employable. So one of the adaptability skills that we need to teach people is unlearning as well as learning. You mentioned perseverance and grit. That's one of the other skills. So you got resilience. There's going to be setbacks. This isn't the end. And you may go to school and learn a new skill, and 5 years from now you're laid off because automation has changed that. So there's going to be a continual evolvement. We need to learn how to deal with all this cognitive dissonance that's out there. We hear, do this, no, do that. Watch CNN, watch Fox News, and teach people how to make sense of what's going on, to live in this VUCA world.
Well, look, we're all in this together. Think of a rowboat. The parents are at the tiller, business is on one oar, educators and other community groups are on the other oar. Business has abrogated the idea that you can take someone with a master's degree in history and put him into an executive development program and train them for banking or law or insurance or some other field. All right. They said, we don't do that anymore. You have to do that we empower you to do that. Well, it hasn't worked out that way.
Right.
Second, if a kid is not reading at grade level by 4th grade, they're never going to catch up. And we have tens of millions of young adults who have never caught up. So either A, we start setting up job training and reskilling programs for the current workers or the people that want who are older, who want to learn and have learned, and B, we better do a better job in preparing the reading, math, and science and writing and communication skills so that a larger percentage of our society coming up will fill your jobs, or it's all over.
Right. So as you were talking there, and you're absolutely right. And we're going to close with this. A McKinsey report just came out. I think it was over the summer. I just discovered it, and they talk about deltas. They talk about distinct elements of talent, and it's going back to these transferable skills. What are the basic skills that people need? And this goes back to Dr. Hamilton's comment about, hey, we're looking for cybersecurity people. They looked in banking, and they looked at the accountants that were in banking, and the accountants are getting laid off in volumes, and they looked at the skill set, these elements of talent, and I think there were 13 occupations, 13 careers that had similar competencies, so similar skills and abilities that across the board. If they had these basics, they can move into any of these other jobs. And just because they didn't go to school to have a computer science degree, or they weren't math whizzes, didn't mean they couldn't do the job. So you have accountants that are getting laid off in mass. And I was just watching a PBS special, and there was an accountant there who had a job for 30 years, and he was laid off, and then he became part of this Amazon camper force, driving around. Basically, there was someone who, if he was identified, I don't know the individual, I don't even know if he was qualified for this, but looking at different roles of people that have similar competencies. They applied math, they had good business acumen, they had good critical thinking skills, problem solving skills, troubleshooters, they were detail oriented. If those are the skills you need, then you can look anywhere. It could be the server at your restaurant has those skills.
If you're willing to do training, if your company is willing to then train them in the areas that you need for a precise fit.
Exactly.
At the end, August 29th, McKinsey issued this report. You see it? And the first thing it said, and we'll close with this: many companies face large and growing skill deficits. A few companies approach skill building in a more integrated way and are quietly gaining an edge on their rivals.
Right. And that's based on that deltas, the deltas that
invest in your human capital.
Right. And for more information about this, you can watch Ed's presentation that was in Chicago on Tuesday night. Talks about the Job Shock report and
download a copy of Job Shock, which will give you more detail, and also read Future Jobs, my last major book on this topic.
Right. And you can get the download at imperialcorp.com. Right. Is that right? You can go up there and you can download the white paper. You can listen to Ed describe it on the video there, rebrand.ly, rebrandly/job shock video. Very easy to get to. It's up on YouTube, and you can watch that in its entirety. And it's always good to see you. There's so much to talk about. There's so many ideas going in my head that we didn't even capture yet. But good thing is we recorded this and we can listen to it again and listen to ourselves. We hope others do. For those who joined us today, thank you very much for watching, listening. Make sure you get a copy of Ed's new report, the Job Shock, the white paper, the Job Shock. Download it, watch the video, and we will be back next month as usually the fourth Friday of each month. We'll be back. We'll be talking about probably a million other things that have happened in the last 4 weeks. And it could be about that our economy has no budget or our government closed.
Right. Well, I hope not. I hope we talk about solutions that people can use in their own backyards.
Absolutely. Take care. Stay safe.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.